The Queen Who Breaks Protocol. Darius Cole sat alone in the cold interrogation room, and the silence around him felt heavy like a thick fog. He had been there for hours, but time moved strangely under the harsh white lights that buzzed above his head. The metal walls of the chamber reflected every sound he made, even the soft tapping of his fingers on the table, making him feel as if the room itself was watching him. He knew the Arcturn Empire designed these rooms to break people slowly, to turn discomfort into fear, and fear into confession. Darius was no stranger to difficult missions, but this felt different. This felt personal, and he could not understand why. He stared at the chronometer on the wall, its red digits blinking with perfect precision, reminding him again and again that 4 hours had passed since he had been brought inside. His scout ship had drifted into Arcturian space by mistake, a simple navigation error caused by a minor jump calibration shift. But the Arcturians did not believe in mistakes. They believed in suspects and enemies. And right now, Darius was both. He had surrendered the moment the patrol ship surrounded him, knowing he stood no chance against an Arcturian fleet. But cooperation had not saved him from isolation and endless questioning. He tried to stay calm, breathing slowly as he replayed the events of the last 3 weeks. The interrogations had been repetitive and predictable, the same questions delivered by different officers, all trying to find something he did not have. He was not a spy, he was not a soldier, he was not even someone special. He was simply a scout, a man who chose deep space because he had no real reason to stay home. His life had been quiet, empty, and drifting, much like the small ship he had piloted before he was captured. Yet something about his ordinary existence seemed to disturb the Arcturians, and that confused him the most. The metallic door suddenly slid open with a sharp hiss, and Darius straightened instinctively, expecting another officer with stern questions and cold eyes. But what he saw made his breath catch. 2 royal guards stepped inside first, their armor polished and their postures rigid. They moved aside and bowed deeply, a gesture Darius had never seen directed at anyone before. It was only then he saw her. The woman who entered was tall, elegant, and unmistakably Arcturian. Her long ears framed her face like curved blades, and her dark eyes watched everything with a calm power that sent chills through Darius's spine. She wore ceremonial attire decorated with symbols he did not recognize, and her presence filled the room like a silent storm. Darius realized immediately that she was not an officer, not a general, not even a high-ranking official. She was something far above them, something extraordinary. The guards remained bowed until she lifted one hand, signaling them to rise. Then she spoke with a calm yet commanding voice. "Leave us," she said, and the guards obeyed without hesitation, stepping back and closing the door behind her. For the first time in weeks, Darius was left alone with someone who seemed impossible to understand. She sat across from him with perfect posture, her movements graceful, her gaze sharp but strangely gentle. Darius felt as if she could read every thought he tried to hide. She did not look at him the way the officers did. She looked at him as if she was searching for something deeper, something invisible. When she finally spoke, her voice carried authority but also curiosity. "I am Lion," she said, "High Queen of the Arcturian Empire." Darius blinked slowly, unable to hide his shock. He had heard rumors of the Arcturian Queen, a leader so powerful that entire star systems bowed to her. But he never expected to see her standing in front of him, let alone sitting inches away from him. His mind raced with questions. Why would someone like her visit a captured human scout? Why was she alone in the room with him? And why did she dismiss the guards when every Arcturian protocol demanded constant security around royalty? Leon watched his reaction with calm patience. "You have been cooperative with our intelligence services," she said. "I have reviewed your interrogation reports, but I have questions of my own." Darius swallowed, trying to steady his voice. "I'll answer whatever I can," he said. "I've said it many times. I'm not a spy. I entered your space by mistake." The Queen nodded slightly, her eyes never leaving his face. "Yes, your story is consistent," she replied. "The Council believes your consistency is suspicious, but I do not." She leaned forward slowly, her expression unreadable. "Tell me about humanity." Darius explained everything he could, their limited expansion, their peaceful intentions, their desire to explore rather than conquer. Lion listened without interruption, analyzing every word. Yet something about her calm posture seemed wrong, like she was searching for something beyond political information. After what felt like an eternity of questions and silence, her expression shifted ever so slightly, as if a crack appeared in the armor she wore before the galaxy. Then she asked a question no interrogator had ever asked him before. Her voice softened, her eyes met his directly, and she whispered, "Are you alone, human?" Darius felt his heart stop, because the question was not about military intelligence. It was about him, his life, his heart, his existence. And for the first time, the human and the queen were no longer interrogator and prisoner. They were simply two lonely beings in a vast and different universe. The queen's secret fear. For a long moment after her question, silence hung between them like a fragile thread. Darius stared at the queen, unable to understand why a ruler of an entire empire would ask something so personal. Something in her eyes had changed, the sharp authority softening into something almost human, almost vulnerable. It was the first time since his capture that he felt the person across from him was not an interrogator, not a queen, but someone who carried a weight just as heavy as his own. He felt exposed, stripped of the protective walls he had built around himself. Yet he could not look away. He took a slow breath, trying to steady the ache in his chest. "Yes," he said quietly, "I'm alone." He told her about his family, how he lost them, how he signed up for deep space missions because he had nothing left to lose. Because drifting into the unknown felt easier than facing empty rooms and quiet mornings. Lion listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable, yet softened by something warmer than pity. When he finished, she lowered her gaze for the first time, and for a moment she looked less like a queen and more like a soul carrying 1,000 storms inside. "I know that kind of loneliness," she whispered. Her voice no longer had the polished strength of royalty. It sounded tired, cracked, real, surrounded by millions, yet unseen by everyone. She lifted her head, revealing a sadness so deep that Darius felt it like a shock. "The council believes I am strong because I stand alone," she said. "But they do not understand that being alone is not strength, it is a wound." Darius had no idea what to say. He never imagined that the leader of the most feared empire in the sector felt trapped inside her own throne. Before he could respond, a sudden tremor shook the floor beneath them. The chronometer on the wall flickered, the lights dimmed, and a distant alarm echoed through the hallways outside. Lion's expression changed instantly, the softness vanishing as she stood with a sharp, predatory alertness. "They are early," she whispered, her eyes narrowing. Darius felt a chill crawl down his spine. "Who is early?" he asked. But the queen didn't answer immediately. Instead, she moved toward the door and placed her hand against the panel. The biometric lock glowed red, refusing her command. Her jaw tightened. "The council," she finally said, "they discovered I came to see you alone." Darius felt confusion twist into fear. "Why is that a problem?" he asked. "I'm nobody. I'm just a scout." Lion turned back to him, but now her face carried a shadow of something dark and dangerous. "You do not understand the political structure of my empire," she said. "A ruler does not meet foreign prisoners alone, not without witnesses, not without guards, and never without approval." The alarm outside grew louder, heavier, accompanied by the sharp metallic clank of armored boots. Lion stepped closer to Darius, lowering her voice. "There are factions within my council who believe humanity is a threat," she said. "They needed an excuse to eliminate you before the truth spreads." "Truth," Darius repeated. "What truth?" But before Lion could answer, a violent explosion rocked the entire detention block. Dust rained from the ceiling. The lights sputtered, and the metal door trembled as something slammed into it from the outside. The queen moved with sudden force, grabbing Darius by the wrist and pulling him away from the wall just as a second blast shook the hallway. "They are not here to question you," she said in a fierce whisper. "They are here to kill you." Darius felt his heart hammering against his ribs. "Why would they kill me?" "Because," she said, her breath sharp, If you die in my custody, they can declare humanity a hostile civilization. The words hit him like a cold blade. The council wanted a war, a real war, and Darius was their perfect spark. The door buckled inward, glowing red from a thermal cutter slicing through the metal. "Stand behind me," Lion ordered, her voice now a command sharper than steel. Darius hesitated. "I can help." "You will do as I say," she snapped. "If they kill you, they gain power. If they kill me, the empire collapses." Darius had no idea what that meant, but the terror in her eyes made it clear this situation was far worse than he imagined. The final bolts on the door melted away, and the slab of metal fell inward with a thunderous crash. Smoke filled the room as dark figures stepped through the doorway, armored in black and gold, their weapons sparking with lethal blue energy. Their helmets were marked with a sigil Darius had never seen before. But Lion recognized it instantly. Her voice was a whisper of shock and fury. "Assassins!" She stepped forward, her stance regal, commanding, terrifying. "This chamber is under the protection of the Queen," she declared. "Lay down your weapons." But the assassins did not bow. They did not retreat. Instead, they leveled their rifles directly at her heart. Darius realized with horrifying clarity that these assassins were not here to follow orders. They were here to erase both of them from existence. And in that heartbeat of dread, he understood the most terrifying truth yet. He was not the one in danger. The Queen was, and he was the only living being close enough to save her, even if it meant sacrificing himself. The assassination attempt. For a split second, the room froze in absolute silence. The assassins stood like shadows carved from metal, their armor reflecting the flickering lights, their weapons humming with deadly blue energy. Darius felt his heartbeat echo through his skull, heavy, painful, impossible to ignore. Lion stood in front of him with the stillness of a queen and the poise of a warrior. Yet he could see the danger in the tight curve of her jaw and the sharp focus in her eyes. These were not soldiers following protocol. These were killers sent with one purpose: to erase them both. The first assassin stepped forward, his voice processed through a mask that distorted every word into something cold and mechanical. "By authority of the High Council," he said, "the human prisoner is to be terminated immediately." Lion's eyes hardened. "I am the High Queen," she answered, her voice ringing against the metal walls. "My presence overrides the Council's orders." The assassin did not bow, did not hesitate. "Your authority is no longer recognized in this matter," he replied. "Stand aside or be neutralized." Darius felt his breath catch. The assassins were not here to intimidate her. They were ready to kill a ruler of their own empire. The realization crashed into him like a physical blow. If they killed Lion, the empire would descend into chaos, and humanity would be blamed for everything. He could not stand there and do nothing. He had never seen real combat, but survival was something he understood better than most. The assassin raised his weapon, its muzzle glowing brighter as it charged for a fatal blast. Time slowed. Darius moved before he could think. He grabbed the metal chair behind him and hurled it with all the strength he had. The weapon fired at the exact same moment, but the chair crashed into the assassin's arm, knocking his aim off and sending the blast sizzling past Lion's shoulder. The beam burned a deep scar into the wall, showering sparks everywhere. The room erupted into chaos. Lion spun toward Darius with shock flashing across her face. Not anger, not fear, but something deeper, something like disbelief that a human would risk himself for her. Before she could speak, another assassin lunged forward, raising a blade charged with electric energy. With a desperate instinct, Darius grabbed a broken piece of metal from the floor, a shard from the damaged wall, and blocked the attack. The impact sent pain shooting up his arm, but he did not let go. The assassin towered over him, stronger, faster, trained to kill. He pressed down hard, trying to drive the blade into Darius's chest. The human gritted his teeth and pushed back, using every ounce of strength he had. He knew he could not win a fight like this, but he just needed to buy a few seconds, a few breaths, and then the Queen moved. Lion leaped forward with the precision of a seasoned warrior. Her hand cut through the air, striking a nerve cluster in the assassin's neck. The assassin collapsed instantly, his weapon clattering to the floor. Darius fell back, gasping, his muscles shaking. Lion stepped between him and the remaining assassins, her voice ringing with royal fury. "You dare attack your queen," she shouted. "You betray the empire itself." The assassins raised their weapons again, unfazed. "We serve the future of the empire," their leader growled. "A queen who protects a human is unfit to rule." Lion's voice dropped into something cold and deadly. "Then you understand nothing of leadership," she said. The leader aimed at her heart and prepared to fire. The humming pitch grew sharper, deadlier. Darius knew he had seconds, maybe less. He grabbed the fallen assassin's weapon, not knowing how to use it but hoping he could pull the trigger in time. The weapon pulsed in his hand, responding to his grip far more easily than he expected. The leader turned toward him, surprised that a human dared to lift an Arcturian rifle. Darius fired. A burst of energy shot across the room, hitting the assassin square in the chest. The armored figure staggered, electricity crackling across his armor, and collapsed with a heavy thud. The other two assassins faltered for a split second. Their formation broken, Lion moved like lightning. She struck one with a sharp motion of her hand, disabling his armor controls. The last assassin tried to retreat, but Lion stepped forward and pressed her palm against the side of his helmet. Her voice dropped into a whisper. "Sleep," she said, activating a neural override. The assassin collapsed instantly. Silence returned to the chamber, broken only by the fading crackle of the disabled weapons. Darius lowered the rifle, his hands trembling, his breath coming in short, painful bursts. Lion turned toward him, her expression unreadable for a moment, before softening into something he had never expected to see in a queen's eyes. "You saved my life," she said quietly, as if the words were fragile enough to break. Darius swallowed hard. "You saved mine first," he answered, his voice shaking. Lion stepped closer, studying him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. "The council will not stop," she said. "They will send more, stronger, ruthless. They believe killing you will give them the power to declare war." She looked toward the fallen assassins, her jaw tightening. "And now," she whispered, "they will kill me to hide their betrayal." She turned back to Darius, her eyes dark, fierce, burning with something he could not yet understand. "We must leave this place," she said. "You and I are no longer safe." And Darius realized with a cold shock that the most powerful woman in the galaxy was now running for her life. With him, a single human, as her only ally. The prophecy of the lone human. The hallway outside the interrogation chamber was filled with smoke and the distant echo of alarms. Darius followed closely behind Lion as she moved through the shadows like a phantom, every step controlled, every motion sharp with purpose. She no longer walked like a queen on her throne. She moved like someone hunted, someone pushed into a corner where the only way out was forward. Darius felt his chest tighten as he watched her, realizing that this moment was more than an escape. Something much larger hung behind every decision she made, something that felt ancient and dangerous. They slipped through a side corridor illuminated only by emergency red lights, painting the walls in dark shades that made the place feel more like a war bunker than a royal facility. "Where are we going?" Darius whispered, trying to keep pace with her long strides. Lion didn't look back. "Somewhere the council fears," she answered, her voice low. "Somewhere they cannot reach without revealing treason." Her tone carried a heavy weight, not of fear, but of responsibility, as though she was holding secrets that could shatter an empire. They passed a security gate sealed with layers of glowing Arcturian symbols. Lion placed her hand against the panel and whispered something in her native language. The door recognized her voice print and unlocked with a tremble. Beyond it was a long, descending tunnel made of smooth black stone. Unlike anything Darius had seen on the station, it felt older, deeper, almost sacred. "What is this place?" he asked, unable to hide the awe in his voice. Lion finally looked at him, and for the first time since the attack, he saw fear in her eyes, real fear. "The Astral Archive," she said, "a chamber forbidden to all except rulers of my bloodline." As they walked deeper, the temperature dropped, and a faint, glowing mist drifted near the floor. The walls were covered with carvings that depicted stars, galaxies, and figures with elongated limbs, like ancient Arcturans. Darius recognized some constellations, but others were unfamiliar, as if they showed parts of the universe humans had never seen. "Why bring me here?" he whispered. "Why risk everything?" Lion paused, her silhouette framed by the soft glow of ancient lights. "Because the Council wants war," she said, "and they think your arrival proves the prophecy." "Prophecy," Darius repeated, his voice echoing down the stone corridor. "What prophecy?" Lion didn't answer immediately. She led him into a circular chamber at the end of the tunnel. The ceiling arched high above them, and at the center stood a floating, crystal structure, shaped like a star, its surface pulsing with slow, rhythmic light. She approached it, and the crystal responded, glowing brighter as if recognizing her. Then the room changed. Light burst outward in a soft wave, forming a massive holographic projection that wrapped around them like a sphere. Darius gasped as symbols, ancient drawings, and starlit patterns rotated in the air. "This," Lion said softly, "is the first prophecy of the Arcturian throne." She reached up and touched a segment of the crystal, and the hologram zoomed in on a single scene. A lone figure stood under a star, drawn with simple strokes but unmistakable in form. Human, Darius felt his entire body go cold. The figure in the ancient drawing had short hair, broad shoulders, and wore clothing that looked almost Terran, drawn thousands of years ago in a time when humans barely had fire. "This is impossible," Darius whispered. "Humanity didn't exist out here. We couldn't travel the stars." Lion looked at him with a sadness older than her years. "The prophecy says a lone creature of flesh and light will arrive from beyond the mapped stars," she said. "And when he arrives, the Empire will face a choice: destruction or rebirth." She pointed at him, her voice trembling. "The Council believes you are the creature, the omen of destruction." Darius shook his head. "I'm no omen. I'm nobody. I'm not chosen or special. I'm a scout who got lost." Lion stepped closer, her voice dropping into something softer. "The stars do not make mistakes," she whispered, "and neither do prophecies." Before Darius could respond, the crystal pulsed violently, and the hologram shifted, revealing a second image. A throne cracked in half, a queen lying wounded, a galaxy burning. Darius felt his stomach twist. "This part," Lion said, her voice barely steady, "is what they fear most." "And what do you believe?" Darius asked, his voice thick with dread. Lion looked at him, and for the first time, he saw raw truth in her eyes. "I believe the prophecy is incomplete," she said. "I believe the Council misunderstands it. I believe your arrival is not a sign of destruction." She took a breath. "I believe you are a sign of change." Before Darius could speak, a harsh, metallic screech echoed down the tunnel, followed by the thunder of boots. Lion's face went pale. "No," she whispered. "They found us." The door behind them slammed shut as an override code locked into place. Lion rushed to the crystal, trying to seal the chamber, but the wall shook as someone outside started to cut through the stone. A deep, booming voice roared through the corridor, distorted by armor speakers. "Queen Lion," it called, "surrender the human and submit to council authority." Lion's jaw clenched as she whispered, "They brought the Exarch guards." Darius didn't know who the Exarch guards were, but the look on her face told him everything. They were far worse than assassins. They were executioners. The walls cracked, dust falling like snow. Lion turned to him, her voice fierce, desperate, full of fire. "You must live," she said, "or the prophecy will twist into darkness." "And you?" Darius asked, his voice breaking. "What about you?" Lion stepped closer, placing her hand over his heart, her touch gentle but trembling. "If the Empire must fall," she whispered, "let it fall protecting you." Before Darius could speak, the wall exploded inward, and armored giants stormed into the sacred chamber. Weapons raised, eyes cold. Voices united in one final command: kill the human. And in that instant, Darius understood a terrifying truth. He was no longer just a captured scout. He was the spark of a prophecy strong enough to destroy an empire, and the queen was willing to die to save him. The truth about humanity that shatters the empire. The moment the Exarch guards burst through the wall, the sacred chamber erupted into chaos. They were towering figures wrapped in obsidian armor, reinforced with shimmering energy plates, their movements precise and terrifying. Every step they took made the ground tremble, and their weapons pulsed with enough power to tear through starship hulls. Darius froze for a heartbeat, feeling very small, very fragile, painfully human. Lion stepped in front of him instantly, her cloak flaring behind her like the wings of a dark phoenix. Her voice cut through the thunder of armored boots, steady and unyielding. "You will not touch him," she said, not as a plea, but as a command carved from steel. The Exarch leader, a massive figure with glowing red eyes behind his visor, lifted his gauntlet and activated a device that distorted the air around him. "You have broken the covenant of queens," he growled. "You have brought a foreign creature into the astral archive, and you have touched the forbidden prophecy." Lion's jaw tightened, but she did not step back. "The prophecy belongs to my bloodline," she replied. "It is my right to interpret it." But the Exarch's voice turned colder. "Not when your interpretation threatens the empire." Without warning, he fired. A beam of crushing energy blasted toward the queen. Darius reacted before he could think, throwing his body into her and knocking her out of the attack's direct path. The beam hit the crystal platform instead, causing it to explode in a blinding eruption of starlight. The entire chamber shook as ancient systems overloaded, sending waves of holographic data spilling into the air. Symbols, diagrams, star charts, and coded messages circled the room like a storm of light. Lion pushed herself up, her hair falling across her face. "Darius," she said breathlessly, "look." Floating before them was the true prophecy, the one hidden under layers of misinterpretation and fear. The hologram shifted and merged into a single massive star map. The light revealed something that made Darius's heart pound in disbelief. The map showed a cosmic wave, a huge invisible pulse sweeping across the galaxy at slow, destructive speed, consuming stars, planets, and civilizations. But humanity's region of space, the soul sector, glowed differently, marked by patterns in the energy lines he didn't understand. "What is that?" Darius whispered, staring at the glowing human region. Lion stepped beside him, her face pale. "This is the reason the Council fears you," she said softly. "This is the secret they hide from the Empire." Darius turned to her, confusion tightening his voice. "What secret?" Lion pointed to the human region on the map, her finger tracing the strange glowing pattern. "Human space sits on a rare convergence point," she explained. "Your region is the only part of the galaxy that can detect the cosmic extinction wave before it arrives." Darius felt the air leave his lungs. "Detect it," he repeated. "How?" Lion met his eyes, her voice trembling. "Your species is biologically aligned with a frequency of cosmic energy that Arcterans cannot perceive," she said. "Your nervous systems feel it. Your instincts react to it. Your dreams even reflect it." She stepped closer. "Humans evolved with a natural sensitivity to the universal resonance field." Darius shook his head, struggling to understand. "But we didn't know any of this," he said. "Humans don't feel anything special." Lion gave him a sad, knowing look. "You call it intuition," she whispered. "Gut feeling, instinct, premonition." The truth hit him like a shock. Humanity's most underestimated trait, their strange, unpredictable instincts, was something no alien species had. Lion continued, her voice hardening with urgency. "If humanity survives the next century, your species will become the galaxy's early warning system," she said. "You will be the ones who can detect the wave, map it, and help every species survive." Darius stared at the floating star map, his heartbeat thundering. Humanity wasn't a threat. Humanity was the galaxy's last hope. But before he could process the revelation, the Exarch leader roared with fury. "Enough!" he bellowed, smashing his fist into the glowing hologram. "The prophecy is a lie." His guards raised their weapons again. We will not allow the fate of the Empire to rest on a creature of flesh and dirt. Lion stepped between him and Darius, her voice trembling with righteous anger. This is not about dirt, she hissed. This is about survival. Yours, mine, and every living being in the galaxy. The Exarch leader took a step closer, towering over her. Your compassion has corrupted your judgment, he said, but compassion cannot save us. Lion's eyes narrowed. No, she whispered, but truth can. Before the Exarch could respond, the chamber walls shuddered violently. The destroyed crystal had triggered a failsafe, causing ancient machinery buried below the archive to awaken. A deep rumble echoed through the floor as cracks spread through the stone. We must leave, Lion said urgently, grabbing Darius's hand. The chamber is collapsing. Darius hesitated, glancing back at the floating prophecy map that flickered in the air like dying starlight. But the truth is inside you now, she said. You're the only one who saw the real prophecy. The Exarch guards charged through the dust and falling stone, firing weapons that tore through the collapsing chamber. Lion pulled Darius through a side tunnel, just as the ceiling caved in behind them, sealing off the entrance with a thunderous crash. As they ran through the narrow tunnel, Darius felt his world shifting around him. He had come to Arcteran space as a lost scout, but now he carried a secret powerful enough to change the fate of the galaxy, and the knowledge crashed over him like a tidal wave of terror and destiny. Humanity wasn't weak. Humanity wasn't insignificant. Humanity was the only species capable of saving them all. And that meant only one thing. If the Council caught him, the galaxy's last hope would die with him. The human who changed a galactic empire. The tunnel shook violently as Lion dragged Darius deeper into the underground passages. Dust rained from the ceiling, the ancient walls groaned, and every vibration felt like a countdown toward destruction. Darius stumbled after her, his breath sharp, his heart beating too fast. The weight of the cosmic truth he carried felt heavier than any chain. Humanity was not the weakest species in the galaxy. They were the warning bell, the early detector, the spark of survival itself, and the Council wanted to erase them before anyone discovered that truth. The passage opened into a vast underground chamber lit by dim blue crystals embedded in the walls. It looked like an emergency escape dock, complete with sleek gliders hidden beneath sheets of dust. But before Darius could speak, the far wall exploded outward as the Exarch guards burst through. Their armor glowed with violent energy, and their weapons locked instantly on the Queen's back. Darius reacted on instinct, pulling her behind a pillar as energy blasts scorched the floor where she had stood. The thunderous echoes shook the chamber as more guards poured in, their voices cold and merciless. Surrender the human, they commanded, or face execution under Imperial law. Lion rose from behind the pillar with the fierce confidence of a ruler who refused to bow. You have already broken the law, she answered, her voice echoing like thunder. You violated sacred ground, attacked your queen, and endangered the destiny of the Empire. But the Exarch leader stepped forward, unbothered by her fury. We are saving the Empire, he said, his tone calm. This human must die before the truth spreads. Darius stepped beside her, though fear trembled in his bones. Why are you so afraid of the truth, he asked. The Exarch leader turned his helmet toward him. Because truth destroys power, he replied, and the Council will not allow prophecy to guide the fate of our empire. Lion clenched her fist, her voice burning. This is not about fate. This is about survival. But the guards fired again, their blasts hammering against the pillars and sending shards of stone into the air. Lion grabbed Darius's wrist and pulled him toward the gliders. Get in, she ordered, her voice sharp. I will distract them. Darius froze. No, he said. I'm not leaving without you. The Queen turned toward him, her expression a mix of strength and undeniable fear. If you die, the galaxy dies, she whispered. Everything depends on you. Before he could protest, the Exarch leader lunged forward, swinging a blade of crackling blue plasma toward the Queen. Darius didn't think, he didn't plan. He simply moved, throwing himself between Lion and the blade. The weapon sliced across his side, burning through fabric and flesh, and he collapsed to one knee with a pained gasp. Lion cried out, her voice breaking with something raw and furious. She struck the Exarch leader with a force that sent him crashing into a wall, sparks exploding from his armor. Darius clutched his wound, but even through the pain, he understood something. He wasn't protecting the queen because of prophecy. He was protecting her because she had become the first being to truly see him. Lion knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she pressed her palm against his wound. A soft glow spread from her fingers, an ancient healing technique long forbidden to use on non-Arcturans. "Why would you do that?" he whispered, his voice barely a breath. "Why help me?" Lion leaned close, her eyes fierce and shimmering. "Because you are not alone anymore," she whispered. But there was no time to rest. The Exarch leader rose again, staggering but still alive. "Enough!" he roared. "This ends now." He raised his weapon for the final strike, but suddenly the entire chamber trembled with a different kind of energy, something deeper, older, pulsing from the floor itself. The shattered prophecy, crystal hidden beneath the archive, had awakened a dormant system, and the chamber's walls lit with ancient symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. The Exarch guards faltered, confused. The queen looked around with widening eyes. "The archive has chosen," she whispered. "It recognizes the true bearer of the prophecy." The lights shifted and converged on Darius, bathing him in a pillar of soft, shimmering energy. The Exarch leader stepped back in shock. "Impossible," he whispered. "The prophecy only responds to rulers." Lion looked at Darius, her voice trembling. "No, it responds to destiny." The energy pulsing around Darius grew brighter, filling the chamber with warm cosmic light that resonated like a deep harmonic hum. The guards froze, caught between fear and awe. For the first time in their existence, they hesitated, and that hesitation gave Lion the opening she needed. She stepped forward, her voice strong, unwavering, royal. "Stand down," she commanded. "The prophecy has spoken." But the Exarch leader lifted his weapon in one final act of defiance. "I refuse to bow to a human," he snarled. Darius rose slowly, pain still sharp, but destiny sharper. He stepped forward and faced the armored giant. "You don't have to bow to me," he said quietly, "but you will bow to the truth." The chamber echoed with ancient energy, and the Exarch leader's weapon flickered, overloaded by the resonance. It exploded in his hand, knocking him to the ground, dazed and defeated. The surviving guards looked at their fallen leader, then at the glowing human standing beside their queen. Impossible as it seemed, they kneeled one by one. Lion inhaled sharply, her eyes shining with disbelief and awe. "Darius," she whispered, "you changed them." "No," he answered softly. "We changed them." As the last guard knelt, the chamber's energy faded, leaving only the soft glow of the emergency lights. Lion approached him slowly, her expression unlike anything he had ever seen, a blend of admiration, gratitude, and something deeply personal. She lifted his hand and pressed it gently against her heart. "You came to us alone," she whispered, "but you will not leave alone." Darius felt something warm spread through his chest, not from the prophecy, not from destiny, but from the bond forged in fear, truth, and survival. He knew then that his life was no longer just his own. It belonged to something greater, to humanity, to the Queen, to the galaxy that needed him. And as the alarms quieted and the Exarch guards bowed their heads, one truth echoed louder than fate itself. A lone human had walked into an empire. And the empire kneeled not to his power, but to his humanity.